Hello and welcome back to Goals Glow and welcome to another video. This time a bit different. We've got the legend that is Joelkim. Joel, it's a pleasure to have you on the channel. A huge thanks for joining me, and for anyone that doesn't know you, do you want to explain a little bit about yourself and where people can find you?
Yeah, my name is Joelkim. It's a pleasure and honor to be on this show. I'm on Twitter. I cover the Korean national team and I cover the players and the prospects. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter at KNT Football. And so I do some reporting journalism for all things Korea national team. That's kind of my brand. And so that's what I do.
Awesome. And I'll put a link in the description for anyone that wants to check Joel out. So be sure to head over there and give Joel a follow. Some incredible work. And we're mainly here to talk about the new Swansea City player that signed, Eomjisung, but also we're going to cover the K-League topic and South Korea national football. Of course, Joel will have a lot to say about that. And we'll all be learning new things right then. So let's start off with Eomjisung then. So what can Swansea fans expect to see from Eomjisung?
I think Swansea fans can expect from Eomjisung what a lot of clubs have come to expect from Korean players: someone who is humble, hardworking, someone who is technically skilled, someone who has just a high intelligence, on the ball, and someone who plays physically, although he will have to adjust to the championship level of physicality. But you can expect to find someone who's just who majors in all those characteristics that are so held in common among Korean players. And he's someone who's also just very crafty and someone who just has, just a good field vision of making plays. And so I think Swansea fans can expect some of a solid wing attacking midfielder prospect from Korea. And I certainly hope that Eomjisung's game takes the next level playing in the championship. Yeah.
We're all hoping that as well, and you did a fantastic job in covering it on Twitter. I feel like every Swansea fan now wants you to almost have transferred with Eomjisung to Swansea, just to report on us more often. You did such a good job, and I know I say this on behalf of every Swans fan who was reading your Twitter to update us. Thank you so much, because it was a great job you did. And for anyone watching this who wasn't a Swans fan, if Joel is reporting on your club signing the next big thing from Korea, then be sure to give Joel a follow, and everything he says is legit and it's super good as well. So great work. Also, so you did sort of touch on it a little bit there. So what positions can we expect to see Eomjisung play, and where would you say from your point of view he is best suited?
Yeah, so he predominantly plays as a left winger and as an attacking midfielder, and Swansea, they've recently given him number 10, so I'm assuming they want him in the capacity of a 10 role, a central attacking midfielder role where he's responsible for a lot of the creative playmaking. I mean, I'm not sure if this is speaking too much of him too soon, but I'm thinking that he's going to play a central role, maybe be the fulcrum of the offense as he makes plays from the cam position. But I mean, we'll have to see how Luke Williams will tailor that role for him. But yeah, he can play as a left winger. He's got the pace to take people one-on-one, again with some adjustment. And even as a left winger, he can send crosses into the box and create plays. He's very good at that. He's been doing that this past season in the K-League before coming to Wales, and so I think he's a good utility player in the sense that I think he can be used in the wing position as well as being an attacking midfielder in that role. So I'm actually curious myself to see how Luke Williams is going to use him.
He seems very exciting indeed, and I was watching a bit of him in pre-season. It does seem like he can play on the wing, as you've just mentioned, of course. He looks really tricky. He's cut inside a few times. Doesn't seem like he has the confidence yet to have a shot, but he looks really tricky for defenders. We haven't seen him, as far as I'm aware, in pre-season in that 10 position, but as you say, given the 10 shirt, it's interesting. And no doubt we'll see him play there at some point in the season this year for the Swans.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not the biggest expert of him in his past, but obviously he was at Gwangju for the past 2 seasons. And I believe he played a big part in Gwangju being promoted to K-League 1, which is a top flight in Korea for this past season. Yeah, I believe that's the case. And so, he's obviously impressed a lot in the K-League. And he's been, Gwangju's best player. And so I think he's attracted a lot of attention there, as well as his performances with the U23 national team. And so I think, just through his participation in the national teams and his local club, he's probably received the attention, which is surprising to me, quite honest, because I don't think there's many other clubs that were looking at Eomjisung in particular. And although he is rated somewhat highly by other pundits in Korean football, if I were just to be very honest, I saw him as a prospect, but he wasn't really high up on my list. Maybe that just goes to speak to my ignorance of football myself. But for the fact that Luke Williams saw something in him, and Swansea were really the only club aggressively going after him, I think it speaks to Eomjisung's ability and his potential, and perhaps there's a lot of things under his hood to be unpacked and to be released in playing for Swansea. So I think that's something that's very interesting, and I'm thankful that Swansea is giving him a chance and believes in him and is investing in him, because I don't think there's any other club doing that. And that's probably a big reason why he really wanted to come, because at the end of the day, I may be incorrect, but from what I know, I don't think there was as much interest in him from overseas. I think the year before, I think there was an MLS team that was interested, but the club wouldn't let him go for that, and they made a promise that, hey, if a European club comes after you, we'll let you go. And so yeah.
That's really exciting to know as a Swans fan, because, as you mentioned there, Swansea signing their best player, which was Eomjisung. That's really interesting, because Swansea of late, since we've got relegated from the Premier League, it seems like every summer we're losing our best players. So for us going after other teams' best players is actually quite exciting now. And of course, Luke Williams and that getting Eom seems to be a bit of a hidden gem, because last summer transfer window, I'm not too sure if you're aware, but Swans, we brought in a load of players, but we're selling half of them now and loaning them out. So hopefully now this summer we can get it nailed on, and it seems like we're exploring a lot of different avenues this year to get our business done in different countries. Of course, there's a downside to that, where maybe it takes a bit of time for him to adapt, but as you mentioned, he's a young, hungry player and got a point to prove. And Swansea are a side that gives young players a chance. We've seen it with managers, the likes of Graham Potter, of course, then went on to manage Brighton and Chelsea. Steve Cooper went on to manage, of course, Forest, and then where is he at now? Leicester, isn't it? So Roberto Martinez, of course, as well, the new Portugal boss. So we've got a track record of giving players a chance to progress, young players and young managers, of course. It's like a gateway through, and Russell Martin being the last one of them recently. So really exciting stuff, and really interesting there from you, Joel. Thank you.
Yeah, that was interesting, because how long has Luke Williams now been the coach? He's pretty new, obviously.
I think January the 3rd, I'm pretty sure he was appointed.
That's right. He came from Notts County.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've been watching We Are Wrexham. I finished the whole season, the whole 3 seasons, and fantastic show. And it actually allowed me to appreciate Welsh culture and just understand the history of Wales and all that stuff that you wouldn't know, unless you were in the UK. But yeah, Luke Williams obviously came up because Notts County was a big rival against Wrexham. And I realized, hey, I recognize that guy somewhere. And I realized he's a coach now at Swansea. Yeah. He's done a heck of a job with Notts County, a bang-up job. And so I'm really excited for what he can bring to Swansea. And I'm excited that one of our Korean players can now play under him. So we'll see how it goes.
I personally, and I think a lot of Swans fans do, we really love him, because he was here under our previous manager, Russell Martin, as a bit of like an assistant manager.
Okay.
I think that was his role. something like that. It was in the backroom staff anyway. And then he left, I think it was during the second season, I might be wrong in that one. Then he left to go to Notts County. And then, of course, in his first full-time, first manager role, won the league there, got them up. And then last season, of course, doing really well in League Two. And then the Swans poach him, which is a bit of a sucker punch for Notts County fans because they look to be on track for a playoff spot. But I'm more than happy to have Luke Williams, a man that really does seem to care. I'm not too sure if you saw the highlights of Swans v Cardiff last season, but the celebrations from the whole club is incredible. Luke Williams showed a lot of passion then, and he speaks really highly about the club. And that's, as fans of football club, that's all you can ask from the manager, someone that really cares.
So that's interesting. So you're saying Luke Williams was at Swansea before Notts County?
Yes.
Wow,
So
okay.
he wasn't the number one, but he was involved in the backroom staff, and he experienced a few months at Swansea. I can't quite remember now. It was 3 years ago. I'm pretty sure 2 or 3 years ago. But he did spend a bit of time here. But then, of course, he went to pursue his own dream of becoming the number one at a club.
Wow, that's great for him to come. It's like a homecoming story. It's full circle. Nice.
It's awesome.
I hope it works out, man. I hope we have a good season.
How do you expect Eomjisung to perform in his first season at Swansea then?
I mean, like I shared in I think the Swansea Express. I think that's the Twitter account. I answered some questions for them. He's going to struggle. I made it very clear. As much as when you report on a player and you report a lot on a player, like their movements and everything, sometimes you can get accused of hyping them up, even though you're just reporting on them,
Yeah.
But I just want to make it equally clear that, I am not hyping him up. I think I made it clear that, I don't think I was necessarily the biggest fan of him initially. I'm just covering him because I just cover and I get behind all the Korean players. But with that said, obviously I'm hoping that he has just this amazing season. He breaks out. But he's not on the level of a player like Bae Jun-ho. I think Bae Jun-ho for Stoke, I think many of us believe he's the next superstar after our big four of Son Heung-min, Lee Kang-in, Hwang Hee-chan, and Kim Min-jae. Bae Jun-ho is going to be a future starter on the Korean national team. At the moment, I do not see Eomjisung, competing for that role. At least at the moment. And so, I don't think he's on that same level as Bae coming into this season. So I think it's unfair for him to first put expectations that he's going to be like the Swansea South Korean king and save the club. By all means, I hope that happens. By all means, I hope he can really just shine here in the championship. And he becomes a great player for the club. I really hope that, but I think we have to have temper expectations and realize he's going to struggle for a little bit, at least for the first few months. Even Bae Jun-ho struggled for a bit. He's going to adapt. He's got to adapt to the pace, the physicality of the championship, the language, the culture, communication. I mean, there's just so many things that he needs to work through. And so we shouldn't expect too much initially, but hopefully, by the second half of the season, if it all goes well, we'll see him getting his bearings and we'll see him starting to contribute. But hey, listen, I mean, if he can just come in and he can do well, I mean, that's amazing. All for it. If he can just start dropping assists and scoring goals, I mean, that's incredible. But with that said, I do think it's been encouraging seeing him play in some of the preseason games. Not the most recent one, but the one before that.
FC Cologne, yeah.
He was just making these runs to the team, and I thought that was really nice to see. And that's just a glimpse of what he can bring to the club at his finest. He brings pace. He breaks through defenders. He runs with the ball. He's just good at that. And then while he's doing that, he can, create opportunities for other players or go 1v1 and try to score goals himself. So yeah, let's not try to expect too much from him. Although I know, we brought him for a reason, obviously, but it's going to take time. And if Bae took a lot of time to adjust, a bit of time, we should not deprive Eomjisung of that same, that we should not. We should also be patient with Eomjisung, in that regard.
I feel like the promising thing is that I think it was a 4-year contract we signed him on, so even the club's expectation sort of aligns with yours then, because we're not expecting him to hit the ground running, score 20 goals for a season.
That would be something. That would be crazy.
Let's hope it happens now. But no, I feel like the club as well got a realistic time frame for him to develop. Maybe the first year is, bit of hit and miss, see what he can deliver, get himself his feet under the desk, and then from there kick on and start to implement himself as a first team player, because we have got a little bit competition for that 10 spot with Ollie Cooper. A few people still think Jamie Patterson might come back, who's been our main attacking midfielder for the last 2-3 seasons. But even if he goes out onto that left hand side, then we've got the likes of Josh Ginnelly coming back. Ollie Cooper can play there, so he's got to work his way into the squad. There's no means going to be a given spot for him, but he looks promising that he's going to get game time this year, a lot of it, and going to have a chance to really prove himself, which is really exciting.
Yeah. So I think that's what's exciting. At least he'll be given game time, and with that game time, we should allow him just the space and freedom to make mistakes, to go through trial and error, and just cheer him on. Even as he's struggling, don't write him off right away, but just continue just to believe in him and be behind him. And I think if the fan base can do that, I think he'll do okay. I think he'll be a good player for Swansea. And obviously, I hope he does the best he can. I hope he can, obviously, and I shared the dreams of every Swansea fan. I hope he can become like a superstar there. That's my hope for every current player. And so, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I feel like at Swansea, we're not known, the fan base isn't known for giving players time. Like last season, I think it was Gary Yates. He didn't perform, and the fans straight away got on his back, and the hate and everything. So I feel that's a message to every Swans fan watching. Give him time, Let's not jump on his back.
If that's the case, because again, I'm not as familiar with the fan base. I mean, I appreciate all the love from the reporting, but I mean, I haven't journeyed through a season with you guys like I have for Birmingham or Stoke City. But yes, please give him space. He just needs time. I understand that there's expectation, there's hunger, there's desire, but we also just need to be patient. And he's just a young guy coming over, having to learn a lot of things, and so it'll take some time for him. But yeah, that'd be great if we can show patience. Yeah, I think that will happen. Yeah.
I was lucky enough to see him at the open training session yesterday after it. And I asked for a photo of him. I'll put it on screen now for everyone to see. But he was struggling with his English there, but he was trying. He was with one of the media people. I think her name is Sophie, I'm pretty sure. She does quite a lot of the media stuff across the platforms. But she was helping him, say thank you or no worries, because I said thank you for the picture. He's like, no worries. But he was, he's willing to learn. And I think that's the promising thing for a young player. Always willing to.
I can say for sure for any Korean player, without a doubt, one of the good things about bringing people from Korea and just East Asian countries, that there's just a strong collectivist culture. And so, they carry burdens on them, not just for the club, but also represent their country well. And so I know without a doubt that Eomjisung is going to work his butt off. He's going to get everything for the club. That I can 100% guarantee. And so, so I hope the club can also give everything and behind him and just support him. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure now we've heard your point of view from it. We all will, and we'll give Eomjisung, all love and care and support. And all we ask for is a player to give blood, sweat, and tears. And I think he's going to do that.
He's going to do that. Yeah, in spades.
Very exciting to hear. Then. So, would you say Eomjisung's more of a creator in terms of getting more assists? Also, Swans fans expect to see him more on the goal scoring sheet with putting the ball in the back of the net.
I'm really not quite sure in certain regards. I think it would have to depend on his chemistry with the players and Luke Williams' scheme. But one thing I can say is that he's very capable at doing both. He's very good at creating plays, good passes, through ball passes, things like that. Link up plays, very good at that. He's very good at putting crosses into the box that are pinpoint accurate. And so I could see him getting some assists from that. And so yeah, he's an offensive player. He can definitely create plays, but he can obviously score goals. He's very tricky in the box. He is very creative in the box with his goal scoring, and he also just has a reputation as well for he's got a nice nasty curler outside of the box, kind of like Son Heung-min, into the right corner of the net with his right foot. We haven't seen as much of that recently, but he's capable of doing it. So if he's in the half space there, I think he's a threat as someone from long range, someone who can score from deep. So the answer to that is I think he can do both. I guess it really depends on the personnel that he's surrounded with. I'm not too familiar with the Swansea squad. I don't know how gifted the wingers are in scoring or the strikers, but if they are, then I would expect Eomjisung to rack up some assists. But if he's looked on to carry that offensive burden, let's say there's not as many scores, then he can do that as well. He can step up and he can try to be that scorer. So he can do both. I mean, it just depends on how the season goes and how the coach is willing to use him.
That's a bit interesting because I'll explain a little bit too. So the Swans last season, then we had a player called Ronald, Brazilian. He was playing on the right, but a few reports suggest maybe he's going to come across and play on the left this season, which is interesting then to see where Eom, of course, fits into that, maybe in the 10. But he's the right-sided player. He's got loads of pace, but lacks end product. Crossing isn't great, and shooting accuracy isn't great also. Swans are in the market for a new striker. That's something we desperately need. No disrespect to Liam Cullen, our usual striker for last season. He sort of had to wait quite a while to get into the team, having come through the Swans Academy. But he's a very exciting player, Liam Cullen as well, and not the tallest, but he'll get on the end of crosses and that. So it's exciting, but. The bit of a tricky thing is last season we had a massive 6'4", 6'5" striker on the bench, but he barely played, and I'm not too sure what that's all about because rumours now he's going to get loaned out. But by the time this video's out, may even be loaned out. But it's tricky to see why we have that height on the bench and not use it when we're last season we like to get crosses into the box a lot going forwards. But we just didn't have that target man in the centre. So maybe we're looking at bringing one in. I'm not in the know with Swansea, but that'd be nice for Eom to show his work pay off a little bit. And something else I want to ask you about. So you talked about Eom's crossing ability. Do you think maybe he's going to be on corners for the Swans or free kicks?
I think there's definitely a possibility. I mean, again, I don't know the quality of the squad, and if there's any player that's exceptionally good at those things, but I would think that he would be a strong candidate to be one of the guys on that duty. Yeah.
We've got Matt Grimes, the captain. He's usually on the corners and free kicks now. Also taking over penalties. He's taken a lot, so time to spread out a little bit with Eomjisung. But corners, he puts a good ball into the box, but when you always like that in swinger, don't you, to make the keeper work for it. And sometimes we don't really have that right footer who's able to really put it on top of the keeper and make them, sweat a bit. And from free kicks as well. I don't think Grimes has scored one at Swansea, so maybe right footer can challenge him for that. I know we're waffling on a little bit sidetrack. Free kicks aren't that important, but awesome to speak about, of course.
Yeah, totally. I hope we'll see what happens.
Right then, Joel, what's your prediction for Swansea this season? Where are we going to finish?
Oh boy. Well, I do know that the club was more in the lower table, fighting relegation last season. So, if Eomjisung can play a part in the club and the club can finish maybe mid upper table, I think that'll be definitely progress for the club moving forward. So I'm not an expert at Swansea Football Club, so I don't know if I can speak into that with an acumen that like someone like you can speak into. But knowing that you guys, we're fighting relegation, I would think that being in the upper half of the table by the end of the season, I think that would be a good step forward. If anything,
I think.
Would you agree?
I'd say going into it, I'd take top half finish this season. I felt
Yeah.
last season it wasn't pretty because we started with an awful manager in Michael Duff who just didn't work out. But around Christmas time, then we had a caretaker manager. It took us about a month to appoint Luke Williams, which is crazy. But you can understand it with the time of year. It's not exactly ideal for anyone. But the exciting thing for me, and the reason I've got a bit of optimism, is because, of course, Luke Williams now has been at the club, since January. So that we're looking like 7 months now. So the exciting thing for me is he's not come in the summer and no one knows what we're going to expect. He's had time to settle in a little bit, understand the championship a bit more, and really try and get his ideas across. And in the transfer window, try and get a few targets that he wants. And now going into the new season, that's why I'm a little bit optimistic. I'm not saying automatic promotion, no chance for me, but I don't think we're completely ruled out of maybe pushing the playoffs. We did see a bit of a few good performances last season. You look at the games against Birmingham. That first one we were good for most of the game. You probably watched that one. It was in January. It was a 2-2 draw.
Yeah.
And then in February against Sunderland, we put a good game together. It's just the thing with Swansea last season is just that consistency. I feel like we didn't have many good performances every month. It's probably like one each month we had a good performance. The game against Cardiff obviously comes to mind, and I generally feel like if we played against Cardiff every week, we'd win the league because the passion we show for that game is like second to none.
I've learned that there's obviously a big rivalry is an understatement when it comes to you guys in Cardiff.
Well, you can probably see the flag behind me. 4 in a row. That's when we did the double. Sits really well here in my heart as well.
Got you.
Will you be watching that game this season? It's 3 matches into the league campaign.
Of course. Yeah, I hope to watch every match that Eomjisung plays. Yeah.
Awesome. So, Joel, I'm not familiar at all with the K-League, so hand it over to you to maybe explain a bit about it. Who are the big clubs over there? Over to you.
Yeah, so the K-League is K-League 1 in particular is a top flight in Korea, and the K-League in general, it's arguably one of the best leagues in Asia. That along with the J League, those two are kind of competing for which is the top league in Asia. So it's very underrated, I would say, along with the J League, very underrated. I think a lot of people may naturally look down on Korean football, but as you can tell, a guy like Bae Jun-ho, he didn't score that many goals or assists when he played for Daejeon Hana City, but he comes over to Stoke and he starts crushing it, at Stoke, which goes to say that like a lot of his skills, a lot of his abilities were refined in the K-League. And so one thing the K-League has that's different from the Championship or the Prem is that it's physical. Among all the Asian leagues, I would say it's probably the most physical league, but it's not on the level as like Championship or the Prem. But because it's a physical league and it's about pace as well, the game's a lot quicker in the K-League. I think the adaptation to the English game, it's not as bad or it's not as drastic as if to say if it was some other league. I would even say maybe the K-League is kind of like, it's kind of like almost, it's very similar to the Prem and Championship except in Asia, but just a lot less physical and probably a little less pacey as well. But I think they've got their similarities, and it's a very exciting type of football that's played in K-League. Like I've been watching the K-League this past half year, covering some prospects, and I've just really been enjoying it. In some sense, I've been enjoying it more than watching championship games. No offense. Some championship games, man, they just slog and there's no creativity. Yeah. It's boring. The players can't execute and finish. But in the K-League, it's dynamic. It's exciting. Many times you're on the edge of your seat, and so it's actually really exciting. And so I think the K-League is underrated in that regard. And but these days, it's getting more attention, exposure as players like Bae Jun-ho and others make their way out of the K-League and are having a huge impact in Europe. And so great league. Obviously in the K-League, there's some historic clubs. You have FC Seoul, you have Jeonbuk Hyundai, you have Ulsan. Hyundai, you have you have the Pohang Steelers. You have these historic clubs that there's tradition as well in K League. And what's exciting this past year is that there's just been growing attendance in the K League as well. So in general, it's just been an exciting time for Korean football. I think with the advent this past 5 years of Korean football, where we have world-class players on the national team and more coming along in the pipeline, I think that has translated to a greater appreciation for domestic football in Korea, and seeing who the next big stars are going to be, who can make it on the global stage and hopefully get involved with the Korean national team. And so it's really great to see that the fans are not just supporting the national team, but also supporting their domestic clubs. And I think one club that's just risen and soared this year compared to last year, where they were fighting relegation, is Gangwon FC. And that is a club that Yang Min-hyuk comes from. And so this guy, he started the season at 17. He's 18 now. He just got picked up by the Spurs. He's breaking all these records. I think he scored now, 8 goals and maybe 4 assists. Yeah, I think so. I could be wrong with that, but through his play, him putting the team on his back, Gangwon is now arguably a contender for the top spot on the table, and the fan base of Gangwon is just they're going crazy, over him. Sadly, he's going to be leaving soon, but it just goes to show that there's just greater domestic engagement. As the national team rises in prominence, as more world-class players are emerging, that's feeding back into the domestic league, and more players coming out that are inspired by their compatriots overseas and them wanting to make it as well, and just growing the fan bases of the domestic league. So yeah, I mean, if I had some thoughts to share about the K League, I think those would be my thoughts. It's an exciting league, up and coming league. I hope it continues to develop. And I think there's some really exciting players that probably to look out for. And Yang Min-hyuk is just the latest one, but there's other players behind him that I think are equally exciting coming down the pipeline.
That's great to hear. And I'd recommend then, from what you've just said, for everyone watching this to definitely check out the K League. I know I will be next season, because if it's better than the Championship, must be good for some games. We all like, as football fans, we all like exciting edge of the seat stuff, don't we? So definitely something to keep an eye on. I was watching the Euros, you probably were as well, Copa America as well. A lot of boring games, weren't there, where it's just so passive, teams just playing it so safe. So would you say the K League's more like go big or go home type of thing?
Well, I'm not sure if I'll put it that way, but I know that it's more characterized by pace and physicality, while the J League is more characterized by technique, technical skills, and the game's a bit more slower in the J League. And those are not my words; they come from Ange Postecoglou of Tottenham Spurs, and he was a coach for the Yokohama Marinos team in Japan, and so he's very well acquainted with both Asian leagues and the talents that come from both. But yeah, as per your question. I think the K League is a league that I think is a very up-tempo league, and it's dynamic and exciting in that regard. Yeah. So I mean, I was just hitting it up with one aspiring Spurs scout over Twitter, and he was just checking Yang Min-hyuk's highlights and looking at the K League while doing that, and he's been telling me like he's been falling in love with the K League because it's just an exciting league. So. I didn't think I'd be falling in love with the K League because, again, I just mainly am excited about the national team. But now watching it, covering our prospects, I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. Production value is top notch, and it's just fun because Koreans in general, the best part. I mean, the key aspects that make Korean players very attractive to people are that they're technically gifted. They play hard, they're physical, they're smart, and so when you got a league full of Koreans who are like that, it's a lot of fun. Some of the passes they do and things like that. It's really impressive. Yeah, and that's
very exciting.
A reason why do you do well in other leagues too when they finally leave. Yeah,
that honestly sounds really exciting, though. Maybe I didn't put it the best way then of go big or go home, but it sounds very exciting, and we'll definitely have to check out maybe a game or two next season.
Awesome.
So, Joel, would you say there's any big upcoming players in the K League, or any that have recently been offloaded from the K League?
So obviously the crown jewel of the K-League, our biggest prospect, has just recently been signed by the Spurs. His name is Yang Min-hyuk of Gangwon FC. I've been talking loads about him. So very exciting player. I mean, at the age of 18, he shows a lot of precocious ability, great physicality, just explosive athleticism, really clinical, with the ball, and just a very fast-paced player. And so I think Spurs got a good one there. And it would be exciting to see how he develops in the Spurs, especially now being connected to Son Heung-min, and he can really have an older brother there to look after him and to tutor him and just mentor him. And I think it's the first time that in Korean history we have two players now at a Premier League club, and one of the top ones at that. And so he just got signed, but we have as well other prospects in the league. There's a guy named Park Seung-soo. He plays for the K-League 2 for Suwon Samsung Blue Wings, and he's considered arguably the second biggest prospect. He's only 17, but already he's showing so much ability and talent and technique. And Bayern, he's been linked a lot with Bayern Munich. In fact, Bayern Munich were, he was supposed to have joined them this summer and joined the U19 side, but his Suwon Samsung club, they want to hold on to him and have him play as a first team next year. And so, but they obviously with Yang Min-hyuk, they know that he's going to eventually go. He's targeted very much. There's even Premier League attention on him right now too. And so, yeah, he's someone that I like personally a lot, maybe even more than Yang Min-hyuk. For me, I'm a huge Son Heung-min fan. Son Heung-min is the reason why I watch national team and whatnot. And I have a comp that I made on my YouTube site, all things Korean national team, that where I made all his national team goals. And so I'm so familiar with him. I'm familiar with his movements. And when I see Park Seung-soo, he really reminds me, of a young Sonny, just his movements and just what he does. But of course, he's only 17. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. But I get really excited about his potential and his ability. So he's someone to look after. And then you have a guy named Yoon Do-young, and he's from Daejeon Hana Citizen Club, football club. And it's the same football club that produced Bae Jun-ho, as well as a guy named Hwang In-bum before Bae Jun-ho, who now plays for Red Star Belgrade. Voted the Serbian Superliga MVP this past season. But now, after Hwang In-bum and Bae Jun-ho, you have this guy named Yoon Do-young coming along. He's only 17. He's considered to be the next prospect out of Daejeon Hana Citizen Football Club, and he's someone to look after. He played earlier today against Tottenham. He did really well, in my opinion. He showed his athleticism. He showed his control, technique, his pace. He was giving Spurs a bit of issues on the flank. He plays as a right winger. And so he's someone to look after. And he has been connected with the EPL. There's Premier League interest. But if that doesn't go through, I would love to see him even play the championship or even be loaned to the championship if he makes it to the EPL.
That seems very exciting. Yeah,
so you got him. Those are some of the most exciting prospects. A guy named Eom Gung just got signed by GC Zurich. And so he was one of my favorite prospects, a big center forward prospect, someone I hope that a championship team would pick him up. And even Bae Jun-ho would just in interviews recommend him. But he's playing in the Swiss Super League now, and he just got recently signed. And there's a lot of other talents and prospects. I have a post where I go through my top 10 prospects. So that's something that if the viewers are interested, they can check out. But yeah, there's a lot of talent, a lot of potential talent coming out of the K-League these days. So it's worth paying attention to. And my job is to, be the latest on who's going to be the next coming about. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Thank you very much for that. And I recommend everyone watching this definitely go and check Joel out. Another thing to go out and have a read on. You're going to really enjoy it. So, Joel, what's the current expectation on the South Korea team for major tournaments?
Well, this year, thankfully, we don't have any major tournaments that we did last year. This past season, we had the Asian Cup, and unfortunately, we crashed out of it in the semifinals, regrettably. There's if anyone familiar with Korean football knows there's a lot of issues with the Korean Federation, the KFA. And so it's a shame because right now we probably have the most talent that we've ever had in our country's history, but we're just being poorly managed, poorly led. by a very incompetent and what many Koreans would say is a very corrupt administration. And we believe that Korean football is not going to really progress until we have a clearing out of that. So that's a shame. But with that said, last season, the toll was heavy on many of our premier players because we were in the Asian Cup. And so we took about a month and a half or a month or so out of the regular schedule to compete in very high pressure, intense physical games. And I think for that reason, a lot of our players struggled last year, such as Kim Min-jae at Bayern Munich, because they were just tired, worn out, and maybe to some degree Sonny as well. But this year, what's great is that there's no major national tournaments, no major tournaments this season, so we can just kind of focus on the club and club football. But there are World Cup qualifiers, and so that's probably the big thing on our agenda, to make sure we pass the third round World Cup qualifiers. And thankfully, our group in the third round is the easiest group out of the three groups, and so hopefully we won't have too much issues with that. But that's really the big thing right now on the scene for Korean national team football. And in regards to Korean national team football, I think it's a very exciting team to watch. Korea and Japan, two loaded teams, two teams that are just stacked with world-class talent, especially in Korea. You know, you have Sonny, you have Kim Min-jae, you have Lee Gang-in, PSG, you have Hwang Hee-chan on the Wolves, you have Pei Jun-ho now, you know, on Stoke. We have Kim Ji-soo at Brentford now, who a lot of us believe is going to be Kim Min-jae's partner in the back line. You have Sol Young-woo, who now moved to Red Star Belgrade with Hwang In-bum, who occupies central midfielder position. And you have Kwon Hyuk-kyu, who right now is currently at Celtic. So we've got a really good team. We got a good team. Like, I've been a national team fan since as long as I can remember, and I think we have a very exciting team. A lot of exciting potential in this team, and hopefully this team gels and melts together and does well. But on that regard, that's why I would say it's hard for a player like Eomjisung to compete, because his position is the most tightly contested position in the national team. Like, he's going against, he's fighting for a spot amongst players like Son Heung-min, Lee Gang-in, Bae Jun-ho, Lee Jae-sung, who plays for Mainz in the Bundesliga, Hong Yeon-suk, who plays in Belgium. All fantastic players, you know, that obviously have the edge on Eomjisung. So it's a curse to be a winger and a midfielder right now, unless you have particularly exceptional talent like a guy like Bae Jun-ho. It's very hard to find a position because it's just so front loaded. But who knows? I hope if Eomjisung plays well, plays his heart out, and he's putting points on the board and registering assists, maybe he could take the place of someone like Hong Yeon-suk. But I doubt it, because Hong Yeon-suk is one of the most underrated players. He's doing well for his club right now. But I mean, I'll never say never. It's not impossible. But just to temper the expectations of Swansea fans, I think it may be tough for him to make the national team. Not because he's not a bad player, but because just the team is stacked at his position. But I'm rooting for it. I'm hoping for it. It would be a terrific story. But he did make his debut many years ago at a very young age, and he actually scored his first goal, you know, in that debut. But can he make it back to the team? That remains to be seen. But I hope it happens, because I'm rooting for him. You know.
Well, I'm hoping that he can score his debut against Middlesbrough on our first game of the season in like 10 days' time from when we're recording this. So fingers crossed for that. Joel, yeah. It's been an honour to have you on the channel. Huge thank you. And just from a Swansea point of view, I want to thank you so much for covering the Eomjisung transfer. Honestly, as a football fan, you always want to be kept in the loop, don't you? When, you know, a new signing's coming. It's so exciting, and honestly, you did it so well. I noticed the Swans sent you out a shirt. I feel like it's awesome, with Eom 10 on the back. That is sensational. So I just want to say a massive thank you for that, and a massive thank you for coming on the channel. It's an absolute honour to have you on, and thank you very much.
It's my pleasure to be here, and yeah, I'll be rooting for Swansea, and I just want to say thank you to the fan base for really, you know, appreciating and showing love. I mean, I cover a couple of teams with different fan bases, and they're great too. But I mean, I think the JB Army, as they would say,
yes,
it's another level, man. Total another level. But yeah, I appreciate you guys too, and hopefully we'll have a good season, and maybe me and my wife, we can make it down and even watch a game. So we'll see what happens.
That'd be awesome. And if you do, be sure to let me know. It'd be great to meet you in person as well, Joel.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And guys, if you've enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe. Do not forget to check out Joel on, we'll put the YouTube link in as well in the description. And also be sure to check out his Twitter. Loads of hard work goes in there from Joel. You can really see he's a class reporter. Check him out, drop him a follow, give him loads of support. And if you've enjoyed this video as well, drop a comment as well. Thank you very much, Joel. Any last words?
No, I'm good. Maybe I'll see you guys at one of the games. So we'll see what happens. But why, JB?
Awesome. Thank you very much. Awesome. What's a Jack? Always a Jack.